I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Natural Resource Board, Tuesday, August 6, 2024. If we could, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. If we could we have roll call, please?
Yes. Mr. Stadelman?
I am here.
Ms. Ware?
Present.
Dr. Mosblack?
Here.
Ms. Bildman? Mr. Kraus?
I'm here.
Mr. Dovell? And Mr. Clifford?
Present.
Thank you.
Great. It's great to see everybody here. Thank you for everybody participating and giving us a full board for the environmental service for Sebastian. If we can, on item 4, can I get a motion to approve the minutes from July 2nd, 2024?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Donna.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Voice vote of aye for approval.
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Any nays? Not seeing any. The minutes are approved. Moving on to item 5, we have a couple of things. The first announcement is regular board member Mr. Thomas Carano will be excused from tonight's meeting, and we welcome our alternative member, Mr. Paul Dovell. I hope I said that right. And he will be voting tonight. So we appreciate your service up here. Glad to see you, and that's one of the advantages of having a full board is we can all actually go do something if we have to and still get things done. And then we have, I have one, any other announcements actually? Should ask real quick. No, I have one on item 6, one agenda modification under new business. Let's see, for NRB participation in the upcoming event, a look back in time on Saturday, September 14th, 2024. And this is going to be an actionable item. This shall be the first item discussed under new business. So that's really just a change. It's just putting it under new business. Is there any other agenda modifications that anybody can see? Okay, not hearing any. We'll move on to item 7, which is public input. Is there any public input tonight? Anything on Zoom?
No, at this time.
Thank you very much, Jason. Greatly appreciate you guys back there for our web and audio video stuff. And thank you, Miss Janet, for being here for clerking today. And we'll move on to item 8, unfinished business. And item A, Sustainable Sebastian Initiatives. We'll go right into what we normally have been doing. And we'll go to item 1. For item A, reduction of single-use plastics, and that's me. Do you have any input on that?
I do have something to add to this one. For this meeting, and something that Dory and I had discussed a little bit earlier, we think that it would be very pertinent based on the previous meeting that you provide staff and to the board as well, kind of I'm not necessarily saying you have to spell it out for us right here and now, but after this meeting, if you could provide to me, and then we could present it to the board, a step-by-step process of what you would like to see happen with the goals that you are aiming to achieve. And what I mean is like the actionable steps of these things need to happen in order for this final end goal to come to fruition.
Gotcha. And so far we've talked about, we actually already voted on the LCA, the life cycle analysis going on, or no, we didn't have to vote on, that was an administrative thing. We voted on the trying to do the ban for the plastic bags, and I got the rest of that to come through now. Well, while we're working on it, and then I can come have your meeting for the how to get from point A to point B.
Right, so what I'm saying is that excuse me, for the single-use plastics ban, we kind of talked about, okay, you would like council to pursue this, but I think, and staff believes that there really needs to be a step-by-step laid out kind of template. It doesn't have to be fully fleshed out, but it has to be fleshed out enough to say this is what would possibly take place in order to lead to that ban. And I
Okay.
think that will be actionable, and that could be possibly worked on from the council down, and then on, you know, the staff level and on the natural resources board level, there would be actionable items that we could put into effect. Do
Okay.
you understand what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So far, all I have is the bags. That's all I have right now. What I'd like to ask the rest of the board is the other two parts that are going to go with that. If we're just going to go with single-use plastics, the reason why it's broke up like that is because part of what we're trying to ban is going to be hard. They're not, the oil companies are going to fight it. There's bans against bans that haven't been approved yet or have been approved. So there's different levels of protection that I'm trying to build into this. That's why I'm going to ask the rest of the board if I can go ahead and talk to you about the other two things, and then I can do everything at once with you. And it all applies to single-use plastics alone, but just kind of breaks it up. If I can do that at this point, and then we'll set a time for a meeting.
Right, right. I would say just keep it right now. Give us like a couple of sentences on what the subject matter is and what you're proposing is to
Perfect.
happen, and then you and I can talk about what that step-by-step process for each of these things would look like. If there's a separate step-by-step process, if they would end up being conjoined into the same process. Just very briefly, you know, kind of summarize what the point is.
Gotcha.
Like the takeaway is what I'm trying to say. What the takeaway is, and then of course we can have that discussion, and then we would come back, let's say, possibly at the next meeting or the meeting after, we would say, okay, these are the steps that we see or we can foresee being necessary in order to achieve what you're proposing.
Okay. All right, board, here's what I'm going to go talk to her about. You guys know about the plastic bags. The second thing will be the PFAS ban scheduled up to 2030. PFAS being the chemicals that they use to make the plastics. PFAS is a perfluorocarbon acid and other things that are associated with it. So I'm going to talk to her about that. That's just what they make the single-use plastics out of. That's how they make it soft, but they use it in all kinds of stuff like floss, plastic baggies. A lot of what we're finding has a PFAS contamination to it, and that has been recently banned by the federal government. That'll be one thing. The other thing I'll talk to her about is establishing requirements for disposable food service products, including styrofoam takeaway, plastic cutlery, and plastic cups. So I'll be talking to her about that. I would be asking for a vote for that right now. This is what I was planning on, but we're going to do it a little bit differently, and we'll do it all at once. If anybody objects to any of this, please let me know, and I'll be glad to change my strategy. The third thing I'll be talking to her about, which will be the final thing after everything else, is to establish a plastic waste reduction fund. And this would be a fund from direct revenue from where we could do plastic reduction and recycling activities, making improvements to recycling infrastructure, and carrying out marine debris reduction. And that's what I'll be talking to you about. And I'll have it all planned out for you step by step. I have it here right now, but we're trying to do it a little bit shorter, and we can do it like that. Does anybody have any objection to any of what I just spoke about?
So I just have
Yes, sir.
a couple of questions, Mr. Chairman. So the board voted on your initial recommendation to ban single-use plastic bags, etc. My understanding was it was going to the board for a vote. Did that happen or not happen, or?
You all did vote to pursue looking into the single-use plastic ban. Now, at this time, what I'm saying is that we need to outline a step-by-step approach at how we're going to get to that point and reach the proposal, or reach that end goal of what Charles has proposed.
So what we voted on did not go before the board to be, council, I'm sorry, pardon me. The council to vote on, that's what happened there.
Right, we just didn't have the steps in place, and that discussion had not yet happened. And that was something that staff realized after the meeting. So at this point in time, we just figured we'd have the discussion and to the end of making sure we have something to present to council that comes from the board, saying that these are the steps that we foresee being absolutely necessary in this process. Kind of how we touched on the integrated pest management plan that the Natural Resources Board had helped with a few years ago. And that process involved workshop, it involved subcommittee meetings. It was quite an intensive process. I wasn't here at the time, but having learned about it since then, it seems that that sort of process would be necessary in this case as well. And if we go to council with a structure or a framework for how we would approach the question at hand, then they may be more amenable to saying, yes, go ahead and continue to pursue this. Let's pursue the language. Let's pursue the things that are necessary to make this work for the city of Sebastian.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So I do have a couple other quick questions, and then I'll let other people speak. You mentioned PFAs that have been banned by the federal government. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir. As of April 19th, 2024, this is the actual directive from the Enforcement and Compliance Assurance, if you wanted to verify it. As of August 17, 2023, EPA announced a new National Enforcement Compliance Initiative. EPA has now designated two types of PFAS, PFOA and PFOS. And those are the two particulars that I'm going to designate because those are the two that have been designated by the federal government. But there's actually 15,000 chemicals that they've slid in, and I'm just going with what the federal government is giving me precedent.
Okay.
And that's where I'm at. And this just came out. I mean, I just got this in May. This is April 19th, 2024. So this is really, really up to date, brand new.
Okay.
And there's a timeline on that too that will coincide. We'll put that in with public input, just like we did with the plastic ban. Everything that we voted on is going to occur, just like you said, where we talk about it in public input, in meetings, in workshops, whatever we have to do. And I broke it up like this so that when they do challenge what we're doing, they have to challenge not just the one plastic bag ban, but they're going to challenge the PFAS ban. They're going to challenge the takeout ban. They're going to challenge the waste reduction fund. So it's going to be hard for them to stop what we're trying to do here. And that's why it's got broken up like that. But we've noticed that there's a challenge to that as well. And we needed to bring it and get permission to take it forward.
Okay, so just when you say they're going to challenge it, who is the they?
Well, I would suspect when I look at the plastic bans from around the cities and states that have been successful or not successful, the biggest challenges are from oil companies in general and some bills that are just poorly written. It has the industries like restaurants and stuff fighting back a little bit because there is a cost to getting rid of a styrofoam container and making it paper. But I've also been looking down in Martin County, Palm Beach, and everywhere I go, it's getting rid of the styrofoam, going with the paper, or going with something else other than the plastic cutlery, maybe no cutlery. And having it as an option if you absolutely have to, of course. People with disabilities, people who just got to have a plastic bag. But a lot of the loopholes we can recognize at this point too. California had a particular problem when they outlawed the plastic bags. They went with a thicker bag, and that's how they got around giving out plastic bags, just made it thicker. So, and it turned out they were actually making more plastic. So we can avoid all those because we can see the mistakes made already. The biggest reason why I do it like this too, because it gives our staff the same things are copied. So it makes them basically a force multiplier. Like they can do the same thing on 3 different things without having to do each one individual. So my staff becomes force multipliers individually, and with all of us together, we're combined arms. And I think we can put the plastic in a box and kill it. Is there any other questions?
No, thank you, appreciate that.
I did.
Yes, Ms. Ware.
You're asking us to vote on what?
Nothing really. This is going to be an administrative process thing.
Okay, because earlier I thought I misunderstood, maybe I misunderstood you. You said you were going to ask us to vote on something tonight, and I was
Not
replying-
really. What we've already done is we already voted on getting rid of plastic bags.
Okay, well,
This is going to be added to that.
okay,
and
but all
then
I'm
we're-
saying is I thought I heard you say we were going to vote on something tonight, so
I
can
don't
I
think
withdraw
so.
that
Okay, thank you.
comment?
When we come back with the process, we'll probably look at it before we give it to city council.
That would be correct, yeah. Whatever the process is that we think we'll need in order to, pursue this, the board would have to vote on and say, yes, we agree, this is our recommendation to council on what we'd like to see happen.
Any other questions?
So I had a question in terms of how this impacts other things. Like,
Yes, sir.
we're gonna need sand for hurricanes. We're gonna need mulch for our gardens. We're gonna need soil for our gardens. Most of these are coming in large plastic bags. So how will this impact those types of products?
Most of something like that, what you just refer to emergency sandbags, anything like that, or stuff that you just can't replace. A lot of marine industry, you can't replace some of the plastics in it. So you're going to have to use some type of common sense. You may even have to override yourself at points, because this is really designed to get rid of what we can get rid of. But obviously, if there's an issue, we'll say with a large plastic bag that brings in sand, we're going to use the large plastic bag to bring in sand. Hopefully, it's not made out of some type of contaminating PFAS, because those go back to the factory manufacturers. And that particular request is actually going to run concurrent with the ban that's already in existence from the federal government. So it's not something that we're really going to have to really push. We just don't want to end up after 2030 with a bunch of plastic dumped here that's full of PFAS. And we want to address it as we're going along. But it turned out to be a little bit more than what we were thinking, and we are going to get some resistance. So that's a good way of saying it. Is there any other questions?
I have
Go ahead, sir.
one
Yeah.
item, and it has nothing to do with these items. We asked for public input on number 7. We're now in unfinished business, but there was a gentleman who came into the council chambers, and I just wonder if we should ask him if he has input.
It's out of line, but I'll be glad to, because he's the only one here. Do you have any public input, sir? You're welcome to come up.
I see you got quite a crowd here tonight. Brent, B-R-E-N-T, Wollenberg, W-O-H-L-E-N-B-E-R-G.
Thank you, Mr.
Well,
Wallenberg.
I come to the right meeting. I was in Vieira. I was hoping I'd make it here because Natural Resources Board. Actually, all the towns along the whole 157-mile lagoon started fishing, was what brought them here. The ice houses, and it could be all what I was here to say is, I thought this was going to be easy. I started in 2012, and Lord have mercy, I was reading a sign on a billboard, you can buy a license plate to restore the lagoon. And it seems like it's just become like a money gathering event. But my dad was a fish guide 6 years ago, and our whole shore was foam. And that foam was a chemical reaction going on. And you bring that back, and the whole lagoon for 157 miles can be brought back. Like I said, I don't even know where to start. But I'll read this paper I wrote, former Commissioner Trudy Infantini. It says, Ronald Reagan once said the closest thing to eternal life in this world is a government-funded project. Putting sand on our beaches, dredging muck out of the lagoon, repairing damage to our bridges, putting concrete catch basins in our storm drains to catch people's lawn clippings are for government projects that can go on forever. These problems and more will never be solved until people understand how the lagoon has functioned for thousands of years. And what it is, it seemed like back then, it's pretty simple. It's simple if you, it's almost like a language, you know. If a fisherman, I heard one guy said it best is, fishermen are more engaged. But that foam, it was back then, it was like there was more fish in water. And the pee and the poop, which is the pee is high pH ammonia and the poop's hydrochloric acid or gastric acid. It would churn, they would react together, but during storms, the barometric pressure would drop and microbubbles would form on everything and it'd all work its way to shore from the waves. Well, that foam was a chemical reaction going on, and actually our lagoon was self-cleaning. And calcium carbonate, CaCO3, the foam CO2, but the O1 going into the water sped the chemistry between the pee and poop and made harmless calcium chloride salt. In other words, our lagoon switched over from sodium chloride salt to calcium chloride salt. Now you bring that chemistry back, and like I say, I'm 15 years into this, and I've stopped fish kills in the middle. The fish would be dying. I put my sand in, and it's the same sand you put on the beach. You can see it turn to liquid.
You have 1 minute, Mr. Wahlberg?
Huh?
You have 1 minute left?
Okay. But anyway, hopefully I can say a lot in 3 minutes.
5 minutes, you're down to 1.
Okay. But anyway, the good news is it can all be brought back. You put shell on the shore where violent wave action turns in the calcium carbonate. Now you don't want to put, sand has 1,000 times more surface area, so it'll react quicker with sand. It turns to liquid right away with sand. I can put my foot on it and feel the heat anywhere in this 150-mile long lagoon from the chemical reaction. And, but you don't want to put too much because you make salt. So in a rain event, it's the time to put it in.
Excellent.
Okay. But I see oysters come back, everything. Clammers have said that they've never made that much money clamming.
Wow.
And I put my foot and rubbed it over the bottom, and I could get $100 in like 30 minutes, you know. And they made the money hand over fist. And I've told them if they had just ground them shells up and put them back on the shore, they would still be clamming today. But anyway, I hope I rocked your guys' boat.
Yeah, you
made
did
it
great.
interesting.
Thank you, Mr. Wahlberg. Greatly appreciate you being here. We will, any additional comments on item A, sustainable Sebastian, reduction of single-use plastics?
Chairman Stadelman,
Yes.
I'd like to just kind of throw out some ideas to help you kind of jumpstart this reduction of single plastics. And I'm more of an outsider coming to your meeting tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Bosworth.
And I applaud your passion for this. But I'm nervous that if you start off with real big of having to try to eliminate plastics and change some of the policies in citywide, where you talk about we're going to have outside people and big oil companies coming in, I think we're starting off too broad, because we don't want to change stuff that we will bring lawsuits against the city or some sort of ordinance that I don't even think may go anywhere with city council. As I was sitting here thinking, and I would love to see, even as a city employee, what would eventually get to city council would be a resolution that you already have prepared through your different steps that goes to city council that creates a, let the city and our organization and our running of our daily operations be the example for other businesses in town on how you can do this. Let us here at the city eliminate our single-use plastics and some of our procedures of using them. And I'm thinking just of all the plastic garbage bags that we use in our garbage containers throughout the town and in our parks. What can you guys come up with us to help eliminate those plastic bags? What's another procedure for that? Of course, our cafeterias and our kitchens. I was thinking even of the community center. As an example, the Environmental Learning Center down in Wabasso offers their facilities for rental for parties. And we had a baby shower down there. I had to sign something, though, that bringing in the containers, our paper plates, our utensils, all had to be biodegradable. Those are some of the policies that you can suggest that council would add to our facility agreements, that things that they bring in there, or even to the yacht club, that's all. I'd love to see it start that a process and a resolution that you can bring to council for them to agree to eliminate the plastics throughout the city that can be then used for restaurants and other organizations throughout town. And so I think that's what's, to me, a better plan. I appreciate your passion, but show how the city can be the example. And I think what Felicia was, what we were talking about, is the steps to get to that resolution. You can't just do a simple resolution that says, hey, we're going to eliminate plastics for the city of Sebastian. It should have examples or exhibits of how we can get rid of our plastic garbage bags, our utensils in the cafeterias, other plastic things that we use throughout the city. So I just wanted to maybe suggest not to...
No, you're great.
Not to get away with eliminating plastics in Sebastian, but to start off small and let the city be an example first. And then we can take those to the restaurants and the other organizations and say, look, we've done it. This is how we've done it. And we'd love to include you in this Sustainable Sebastian program, eliminating the plastics. Just as an idea for going forward with Charles's ideas on getting rid of some of those single plastic and other uses.
Is there any additional comments on that?
So I had a couple things, and I think it piggybacks off of what Ms. Bosworth said. I think it's important to focus on what we can truly impact and control. And when it comes down to it, you know, with the plastic bags, I think that finding replacements or figuring out how to start with the city is definitely worthwhile. I believe, and I haven't looked in a long time, but I do think there are some statewide regulations as to what types of municipalities, what size of municipalities can actually enact these bans. And I don't, so I think we need to make sure that we're within that and that we follow those rules. When it comes to the, you know, the single use, again, I think that, you know, starting here, starting small and then serving as an example is huge. I think with the PFAS, I am, again, I'm not an expert, but I have read some of these things, and I'm wondering if with the EPA regulation on the PFAS, I don't know that it's eliminated. I think what they're doing is requiring monitoring of water supply systems. Is that,
It goes
did you
quite
read into
beyond
it?
that. Yeah, I actually have it right here.
Okay.
I have everything all you guys said if you want to go through it tonight. But Felicia was trying to cut us a break on doing it in steps. But I do have that information and the information on what you'd asked about doing it in small steps. Absolutely. We're just trying to get to coming up with what we can and can't do.
So, I mean, one of the things, but again, if I'm wrong in this, but I do think with the PFAS, a lot of it is, there's a lot of concern about it being present in water systems.
Correct.
In public water supply, and the city is not in charge of our water supply.
That's why I called the water department and then actually checked to see if they were testing for it yet or not. Now, one of the problems that I have found with that, which I'll actually bring up in Felicia, because again, this is quite extensive. You gotta remember, I've been working on this. You challenged me with this in December, but we had Earth Day, we didn't have a meeting. So we're there. So I've been working on this for 6 months. You're absolutely correct. Some of what they're talking about is in the water, but where they test for it, do they test for it at your tap, or do they test for it where they draw it out? And guess what's between us and where they draw it out? Nothing but plastic pipes. And it turns out nobody told the contractors not to put in plastic that doesn't crack or that doesn't leach. It would be another way of saying it, because there wasn't any designations and there wasn't any guidelines before April 19th, 2024. That is a very valid question, and I am right on top of that. I've called the water department directly to see if Sebastian's water is being tested. They have a directive on their website saying it is, but it's from the main site. They don't test at the tap. And one of the things that I'm doing is I'm actually trying to work with a company that does testing and goes through the whole thing. One of the things that I'm limited on is my education. So I don't have a very formal education, but I've worked at other places that gives me the education that I need. So I actually have an affiliation with a testing company that can give me the information that I need and that I can learn a lot quicker than going to a 4-year college. So it's here, it's banned, it absolutely causes problems. And for me, it's more personable, but I won't go into that because that's just a whole nother thing. I'm trying to get to Felicia, and we'll get to that meeting, and then we'll have another meeting back here before we go to City Council.
And I mean, I think that you're absolutely on the right track in terms of we really should be reducing our plastic bags, and the PFAS shouldn't be a threat to human health, and single-use plastics we should be avoiding. My only concern is kind of coming from, I think, a similar vein of Ms. Bosworth, is that if we're going to try and do this in an effective way and not to waste your time, I think it might be worth maybe splitting the PFAS initiative, because that seems like it is very much county as opposed to city.
In the city, it'll be anything made with plastic, actually. And somebody's actually doing a sustainability walkthrough right now, and they're finding what is made with plastic and what isn't. And single-use plastics, it isn't just in the water. The water supply is how you would be exposed to it the most, because that's what's coming out of your tap and that's what you're drinking. But in the city hall, the chairs are plastic. A lot of the tables have a plastic top to it. The pens are made out of plastic. This is where it turns out that the wax that they use on surfboards is really soaked through the skin with PFAS chemicals. It's a plastic that's been softened. The only way they can do it is with that PFAS. So there's a lot that goes into it, and it is quite substantial. I feel it is the challenge of our lifetime. For me, the LCA that we already voted on to have that put in, I think that, if done correctly, would address all of these problems. A life cycle analysis done correctly, you would never have any of these problems if done correctly. So that's why I did that first. And as soon as that's ready to go, I'm going to the county with that and then to the state. So that, for me, really supersedes all of this. The other things are just layers of protection. The single-use cutlery and stuff like that, that's just, where all this comes from is that a body at rest will
Charles?
tend to stay at rest.
Sorry, I do want to just kind of interrupt. I don't mean to be rude, but I think you're kind of reiterating some of the stuff that you've stated multiple times before, and I think we understand where you're coming from, and I think maybe we all have an understanding now that we need that outline process. We need to consider the ways forward, and I think part of what Nikki and what Ms. Bosworth are getting at is that part of getting to the ultimate goal, that what you're trying to reach, may be the first step is coming up with a resolution specifically for city facilities, not necessarily for the whole city and every business and every home and every possible plastic product that can be addressed. Perhaps this first step, and we're already kind of working on what utensils that we can change, what cups and things we can change in our city facilities as far as purchasing, but if we have a resolution that sets that in stone for the long term and not just, okay, well, we're going to see about buying, we're going to see if we can buy alternatives and hopefully it sticks. But if we have the resolution in place and we make those changes around the same time, then it should theoretically be more effective. And then we can lead by example and say, look, everyone, this is what we're doing. This is our resolution that we have set in place, setting the standard for ourselves. And then we not only have that as an educational tool for the public, but then it may set a precedent that would allow us to move forward with the further bans that you're seeking. And I hope maybe you can understand that perspective, that it is a stepping stone and a really important stepping stone to make sure we address it here at the home base before we start asking about the wider city as a whole.
I thoroughly agree with you. Absolutely. Is there any other questions?
I just want to say one last thing, and I'm done on this subject. So PFAs, I come from Vermont, and PFAs are a big issue in Vermont. There are a number of communities that have them in their water supply, etc. If we take Ms. Bosworth's recommendation, then it might be that we should focus on PFAs in the city buildings as a starting place and improve our value or our effectiveness. And then you have it's a lot easier to go to other organizations to say, by saying, well, we've done it, here's the things that we've encountered, here's the issues that we address. And I think narrowing that focus down would help us to be more effective and to be able to present our ideas to a bigger audience. So,
absolutely, I thoroughly agree with that. Just to comment on what you just said there, because the places that you find the PFAS are in food, especially fish, because it's in the water, dairy products from livestock, food packaging, including the paper wraps, fast food containers, microwave popcorn bags, pizza boxes, candy wrappers, household products, including carpet, which we have all through the buildings, varnishes, cleaning products, it's in everything. And I think as we go through to establish this process, I'll come back with something to everybody that will be very happy. I think we actually already have a resolution to get rid of single-use plastics that started with the Sustainable Sebastian. When we look at that resolution, it actually states that we're here to work on getting rid of single-use plastics. And the resolution that we would do would just strictly be a resolution, and it would be non-binding. But we'll start with that. But again, a lot of this most of the stuff that I do is based on science. And the science that I read says it will stay still until we push it, until you give it the motion. And the body will always stay at rest. And until we tell the businesses to do, not to poison us or the corporations who make the plastics. But again, I will come back with your recommendations. And everything else is already done. This is all just administrative stuff, and we'll come back and I'll present to you something that you guys will be comfortable with in little small steps if we have to. That's pretty much where I'm at with that. Is there any other comments or discussions on single-use plastics?
Charles, I do want to mention I've been working towards addressing the single-use plastic items that are being currently used by the city and that are purchased for our break rooms and our other facilities. And I'm working with our procurement department to find out the pricing for the possible alternatives that I've looked into, and I've sent those to Mr. Clifford for his review. And I don't know if you happen to have any comments tonight. If you don't, that's okay, but I figured it would be worth mentioning that this part of the process is already occurring. And so if we do end up working towards a resolution, that would be much more specific than just the Sustainable Sebastian initiative, because that resolution is to say, these are our goals, but I think if we do a single-use plastic resolution, it would be much more specific and granular as to what exactly the city is going to do to make sure that we as the municipality are not using single-use plastics, if at all possible. But I'll turn it over to you if you do have any comments.
I do have a comment. The sooner I can get the costs to compare with what we use now, the better, because let's face it, it's not my money I'm spending. It's everybody else in the city's money. So they all seem to be viable alternatives, but again, it comes down to how much do the alternatives cost in comparison to what's being used now.
Absolutely, thank you. And as soon as I have that information, I will make sure you get that.
Thank you.
All right, fantastic. Okay, so I'll set a date with you when we can get together and start that process.
Absolutely.
Thank you, team. Greatly appreciate everybody's input. And if I seem motivated with a sense of urgency on this, it's just because of how I am. But I greatly appreciate everybody's input, and it's needed. And remember, my ideas aren't always ready for prime time, and I know that. So my feelings don't get hurt. Okay, we'll move on from item A, Sustainable Sebastian, to number 2, Native Landscaping. Ms. Billman, what you got for us?
Next time.
That's okay. We'll go next. We'll just move right on through it, so you know I sucked up all your time.
Actually, we have a meeting tomorrow afternoon with the nursery, with going over the plans and the plants and recommendations. So next meeting, we should have a lot of good information. And one other thing I wanted to ask, I think I brought it up at the last meeting about doing a name change for Garden Club Park. And I wasn't sure kind of where to go or what's happened or what do you suggest?
And my apologies. I guess I assumed that you had been in touch with Mr. Blankenship. I think maybe he had heard the suggestion, or I don't know if he had heard it directly from you or he had heard the meeting. But he did have a suggestion that he posed, that if we name the new landscaping itself as opposed to renaming the whole park as a possible idea, but I can connect you with him if you'd like, and then you can kind of go over what the possibilities might be and see where it goes from there.
Okay, because my thought was to do a name change, and since this is all happening in the centennial year, to redo it to Centennial Park.
Right, I hear you, and I understand that, and I think very recently the city lost one of the founding members of Garden Club Park, and in light of her passing, Richard had said, and I think it was also, I had seen the article, and Alex Bernard and Mr. Richard Blankenship had both mentioned that because of her passing, maybe now's not quite the time to make the name change.
Okay.
So
we'll talk about it.
Yeah, we can definitely talk about that.
Is there still a garden club?
No.
So there is no garden club. So that's kind of pertinent here, don't you think? If there is no garden club, they haven't been maintaining it. So maybe we...
Yeah, and we have had discussions. I know Sherda had brought up the possibility of starting a garden club that the city would run, and that might be something that's quite intensive. I don't know. I've never... I have worked in an arboretum and leading volunteer groups of that sort of nature, but I've never developed a garden club program myself, so that would be something that we'd have to discuss if that is something we wish to pursue, and that would also be something that would be under the purview of the Parks and Recreation Department.
And one other thing to add to that is we had talked about that once we get this installation completed, it will need maintenance. And because we have a real seasonal population, sometimes we'll have more people than others, but there are other organizations, I think Nikki Monroe.
Nikki Monroe.
Yeah. And I cannot get hold of her. But anyway, there are some organizations that we may be able to tap into to get some guidelines, to get a group of volunteers to help maintain it. Because I think it's going to be too big for just the city to maintain, to be quite honest, once we get it installed. So, okay, but next meeting will be a good one.
Next meeting will be a good one. Any additional comments on native landscaping for Garden Club Park updates?
I just have one quick question.
Yes,
We
sir.
have a park that's named, it's a sewer, or what's the name of that one?
Stormwater Park? Is
Yeah,
that what you're thinking of?
Stormwater Park. And when I came to Sebastian, I used to take my dog down there, and that's about the strangest. I mean, it's accurate description of what the park contains, but it's not particularly appetizing or, you know, if you say garden park, that I get. I mean, flowers and, you know, nice smells, etc. So I'll put my 2 cents worth in if you're going to take a look at names.
I think this is going to be a parks and, is this a parks thing, or is this something we can put on the agenda?
As far as the naming of the parks, you mean? That would,
Right.
I think, would be a Parks and Recreation Department and the Parks and Recreation Board thing. Now, if you have some sort of recommendation that all the board agrees on, then maybe there's a chance that we could bring that to them.
Yeah.
But
just-
that you would have to come to some sort of consensus.
Yeah,
And I can fill in for Mr. Kraus with the park, why it is named that. The property is actually owned by St. John's Water Management District. And there is a collaboration agreement with the city of Sebastian that we maintain it, but a lot of our stormwater goes there.
Yeah.
It's a passive recreational thing in terms of that they added those trails in there for walking. But in terms of park with playground, or like you say, it really is a stormwater park, and it's owned by St. John's. So it's more of just a nomiker that we call it, just so we know where it is, but it's not necessarily a formal park.
Okay. I can bring that up at a later date or in different venue, but it always struck me as not a particularly enticing title. That's all.
Well, thank you very much. We greatly appreciate your input. And one item at a time. And if that's it, then that's it. Okay, we'll go to item B, Riverview Park possibilities. Ms. Ware, did you want to comment on that?
I know this is part of under Sheraton's Ballywick here, but I just reminded Felicia about when they had the open comment meetings about changes coming into Riverview Park based on grants that they've received already. So the city already has grant money that they want to spend, and I did go to one of those meetings, and there were an awful lot of changes that were put up there for people to consider. And I just think that I asked Felicia, there has to be some kind of summary report of the things that the people voted on, because they were asking for input as a vision as to where to go. One of them was moving the splash pad because it's not working too well to the center of the city, the center of the park, I'm sorry. But there would be a lot of opportunities for our board to get involved with planting native plants in this process. And since they have money already allocated for these types of projects, I think that somebody from our board needs to be able to participate in this process with the group that's pursuing these plans. So there is a handout in here of what they gave out during that. It was 2 different days that they had that meeting, and things that they were bringing forward during that part. One of them was actually to have a market, like a vegetable market there on the weekends, and the farmers market. But again, since this is part of what our big picture is, we want to beautify the city with natives, that I really do think that somebody from our board should be part of a team that's working already. So that would be my one suggestion.
Thank you, Ms. Ware. Do you have any comment on that?
I do, actually, to kind of tie in the low impact development and green stormwater infrastructure. That also, I think, would go hand in hand with the native landscaping as far as something within the Natural Resources Board's purview, something that we're interested in seeing grow throughout the city. And Riverview Park may be an opportunity to implement some green stormwater infrastructure and some low impact development techniques that you can't really find elsewhere in the city at this point in time. And there are other municipalities who have done redevelopments of pre-existing parks, so it can be done. It's just quite an intensive process, and we'd have to very carefully choose what elements would go where, how it would function, how it would really benefit the city, how it would benefit not only the people of the city, but also benefit the, our stormwater, preventing pollutants from getting into the lagoon. So it's just something to keep in mind, that I think that the LID goes hand in hand with the native landscaping as far as Riverview Park goes.
Thank you. So it sounds like she agrees. Okay.
Oh, can I ask a quick question? Just practicality. What is the next step for Riverview? Is it, because I wasn't able to attend either of the meetings, is it something where the LID, with stormwater, it seems like a kind of low-hanging fruit and really obvious choice, but no one has brought it up until now. So I appreciate that. When I drove past after a large storm, I mean, you see water right there. And when the new parking lot was put in years ago, it was all paved, and you have this huge impervious surface that's just running off right into the lagoon. Is Kimley Horn the one who's in charge of kind of coming up with the plans? So are they taking further input, or?
I think usually when they do a master planning like this, Kimley Horn will come, they'll do some sort of presentation with the, either a draft plan would go to staff, but the final plan will go to council for approval. And I think that's at a point when they get to that point that through Felicia or having a meeting, that you'd be given a copy of that plan. And then certainly at that city council meeting, if there are some recommendations that the Natural Resource Board would like them to add to that plan, such as to include LID or some of the landscaping, that would be the time when you would go before the board to ask them to, the council, to include that into a master plan, or while they're working on that draft. But wait till we get a copy of that first draft, and possibly then it can come before you as a recommendation to council, that you would get a chance to review it.
I think that we would definitely want to have them come to us and say, once they get to that point, and present something to us that get onto our agenda so that we can see it. And whether that's before they give it to city council, it's a draft. It's a draft.
That would be the best point, because you can review that and say, hey, on this page, I think there should be a paragraph added that talks about LID as a part of the site planning for, the new Cavcore parking, for overflow parking or something. And then that can go as a recommendation.
And since there seems to be at least 3 of us that are very interested in this, either we come to their meeting or they come to our meeting. Okay.
Do we have to get permission for us to go to their meeting?
I think
Do we have to vote on that as a board?
And I apologize, I'm not sure which department is actually handling this plan, probably Parks and Recreation, maybe through the city manager, I'm not sure. But Felicia can connect with them and just kind of, politely request that when they get a draft, if it's okay that the NRB takes a look at it and make some recommendations. Can recommendations from the NRB be added to the presentation to City Council? But we'll find out which director's in charge of this plan and contact them.
And a timeline too, because I'm sure with the money involved, they have a timeline to spend.
Yeah, they have deadlines to, I'm sure, get a plan too. So we'll find out who's in charge of who was in charge of this plan, and we'll work with them.
So, if I may ask, on this one here for the Riverview Park, have they made decisions? Or are they do they talk a little bit more about the input? I mean, looking at the map, it's all kind of like up in the air kind of things. So how do we find out what they're considering or even, thinking about putting in the park?
Right, so this was just from the public workshop meeting, so I will look into seeing if there was some sort of report done, kind of summarizing what the results were from the public and their input into those meetings. And if there's been any other decisions that have been made in the meantime, I can kind of, I'll do some digging and uncover what I can, and I'll report back to you and see if, I know Alex Bernard has been involved in the process because she's the Community Redevelopment Agency manager, and this happens to fall within that area. So I know this is partially under her purview, but it's also under the purview of the Parks and Recreation Department. So Mr. Blankenship was also involved in this. So I'll talk to them. I'll see if I need to talk to our city manager as well and see what information I can provide. But I don't know if they've made any official decisions yet.
And I just want to say, Nikki just pointed out, I couldn't read it because it was in yellow here, that these are sort of the recommendations that they're making, and these are like sort of like the before and after pictures is the way I look at it, just to kind of enhance certain areas.
Right, yeah, so those are some of the areas and the constraints that they seem with the park as it currently is. If you are interested, I can also provide you with, I believe they had sheets that came with this map in the presentation as well that showed some of, it's not of our park, but it's of other parks and areas that had different things such as shade sails or having vegetated like natural landscaping buffers or things of that nature, or different layouts of the park that would facilitate better farmers markets or vendor events and things of that nature. So if you're interested, I can see if I can find that and give that to you.
I would be. Thank you.
Are there any additional questions on that subject of a Riverview Park possibilities? Okay, not seeing any. Thank you, Ms. Ware, for your work on that. We'll move on. We're going to skip number 3, tree protection landscape ordinances, which is obviously very, very important, but Mr. Carano is out today and with an excused absence.
Charles?
Yes, ma'am?
I can just speak to it very briefly just to kind of update you on where we are with that.
Okay.
Yes, unfortunately, Mr. Carano couldn't be here with us tonight. At this point, staff has started having discussions about the drafts that we've come up with. And the next step for us is to kind of outline the plant list that would go into this code as far as what plants are acceptable and what plants we recommend be used as far as the trees go, but also potential landscaping plants as well. And there are sections of our pre-existing code, not necessarily in the tree protection and landscaping codes and ordinances, but we do have a decent list in our riverfront overlay district, I believe, that has some of the plants that we would like to see also in this list for the overall residential tree protection and landscaping ordinances. So that's kind of where we're headed at this point in time.
I'd love to see some tree protections. Just wipes me out. Any other comments on item 3? Okay, not seeing any. We'll move on to item 4, resource conservation. I don't know if Ms. Ware has already filled us in with everything, but this is hers.
Well, basically, in your packet, there's 2 or 3 things that I talked about last month that I had taken from other websites of other cities and asked the lawyers to review whether we could use this information in our outreach materials to the city, within the city here. And these ones that are attached, which you should like, are about microplastics.
Yes.
Plastic recycling and sustainability in the workplace. They're pretty simple, they're easy to read, and I think that, it's something that we should be able to put on our website at the minimum, but I think that when we have any kind of outreach into the public, when we have Earth Day, especially whenever we are out in the public, that we can have this material, even if we make up boards, so we don't hand out things all the time, or we put the little codes on them so that they can get them themselves if they don't want to take a picture of a poster or something. Anyway, we have to make a motion to actually use these materials.
Excellent.
As part of our board, our sustainability program. If anybody has any problems with that, I know it's already been approved through the lawyer, so there's no.
Okay, I have Well, it looks like back to back. Looks like
Yes,
one of them
there's
got
back
printed
to back.
Back to back, okay.
Yes.
And I can provide some clarification as well. So the first two sheets that you'll see, the microplastics one and the plastics recycling, both came from some colleagues at the UF IFRS extensions. And the last two that you'll see are actually City of Sebastian developed. They were developed through Canva. So they're very simple, but it was something that for these last two, we would actually like to go to print with these. They'll be a little bit bigger than this size, and ideally those would be hung up as outreach for our city facilities, so that way our staff members can see those. And we may also use the other two as city staff outreach as well. The other two were just specifically designed with our city staff in mind, and then we can take that to the public as need be. But because these last two would have to be resized, we wouldn't be able to just print those out in our office like we would. So we'd like your permission to be able to not only go to print with those last two, but just to add these to our toolkit for outreach.
I'd like to make a motion to use the outreach materials for distribution as presented from Ms. Ware and Ms. Gordon, the three as presented and as can be changed to reflect City of Sebastian. I'd like to make a motion on that. Can we get a voice vote of aye for approval?
Aye.
Aye.
I have the motion.
The new guy. Let me see, I wrote his name down, Paul Dovell. Okay, and a nay for non-approval? Okay, that passes with unanimous approval. I'd like to make just one mention on the microplastics. Over the weekend, I went up to Florida Wildlife Refuge in Melbourne. They actually had recovered 75 seabirds in this last week. Something happened. They all died. They did a necropsy on the vast majority of the birds. They all died with stomachs full of plastic. So it's on their website. All right, let's move on. Let's see. Item 5, green infrastructure and LID.
Charles, we do have one more item under
Oh, do we?
the resource conservation.
Under resource conservation, microplastics, 5 things you need to know about recycling. Oh, I see. Oh, got you. You read. Very important. Item B, results of the City Hall walkthrough. Mr. Matthew Kraus.
So Mr. Kraus and I took a walk through City Hall with Mr. Richard Blankenship as he is in charge of our facilities. And it was kind of just to assess where we are as far as recycling goes, where is trash, check out the lights, and kind of see what we're working with currently in City Hall. We also did walk over to the old school building as well to figure out what's kind of going on over there. Some of the things that I found to be most notable is that we could use some more recycling bins. I know through Sustainable Sebastian a few years ago, recycling bins were implemented throughout all city facilities, but it does seem that maybe those have fallen out of practice. It's been a few years since that was initially implemented, so it may be worth revisiting that and acquiring some new bins just for people in their day-to-day practice here at the city. And there are some areas in City Hall where there are lights on sensors, but not all of them, and those sensors can be adjusted. There are also some city facilities that have AC systems that are on the smart timers, but areas like the community center are not yet on smart timers. So those are just a couple things. Mr. Kraus, if you have anything that you'd like to highlight or address from this.
Okay. Well, thank you. I don't want to talk too much. I think I've already spoken my share this evening, but We didn't quite finish the walkthrough. We will finish it shortly. We have another meeting on Friday to finish a couple of things that we didn't finish on our first meeting. Mr. Blankenship was quite helpful and provided a lot of information and background as to why certain things were done, etc. My personal observation is there is some opportunity there to sort of tighten or emphasize other practices that we could do to show how the city is doing. We also have to contact, let's see, it was the IRC group that we had to chat with. We haven't done that yet, but we're going to speak.
Actually, to inform you, I did actually speak to Ms. Ware about that possibility, and she will be looking into the Indian River County Solid Waste Disposal District. So at least on that part, we're starting to make headway.
All right, well, thank you very much. No, I didn't know that. Appreciate that. So anyway, so we made a little bit of progress, more for informational perspective, and going through a building and chatting lightly with the employees provides them an opportunity to ask questions, which is important, or to provide feedback, or to make suggestions. And as I mentioned, all the items that we want to take action on were proposed by employees, and even the suggestions about how we could improve them were suggested by the employees also. So you want to get back to the employees, let them know that you observed what they said, that you're taking action on it, and that you appreciate the suggestions that they have. And I think we'll have further progress at the next monthly meeting.
Excellent. Is there any additional comments on item B? Okay, and thank you for your great work on that, and we look forward to seeing the rest of the report. Moving on to number 5, green infrastructure and low impact development with our champion, Dr. Mosblick.
Yeah, it'll be short. Unfortunately, Felicia and I have been back and forth. We're trying to make sure we have the best possible kind of formatting and orientation and headings for the cut sheets, where we're going to take all of the information from the site visits and condense it, make it kind of easier to digest. So I'm still working on that. We're still working on that, and I'll be hopefully have more substantive update in September. Sorry.
No, you've been great. Every day that you've been doing something, it's just been fantastic on that meeting, and we look forward to your final report. And then sidewalks and bikeways with the champion, Mr. Kraus.
So I only have a brief comment on this, and I did talk with Alex about this subject, and her suggestion was that there's a great deal of information already out there that apparently has been collected by the MPO, is that the organization? I'm still learning all the organizations. So there may not be a great deal of additional work. The first step will be to take a look at what the MPO has available, see if it fits our particular needs. If it does, that's fine. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. If it doesn't have everything that we need, then the next step is to determine what kind of information we do need and how we have to get it.
I can recommend you attending those meetings, because we've attended a couple of them, haven't we? Or we attended
We did attend one
Yeah.
meeting, yes, and then I
and
think
I
there was
went to-
I'm not sure if you were at one of their public workshops,
Yes.
but Ross Kelly and I, our GIS technician, he and I both attended one of their public workshops that they had regarding the,
And the more you can
master
get us
plan.
in on those meetings, because I was amazed at just how much input we could do in the planning stages, but if you're not there, literally, they had 4 pages of county, what we're gonna do, and a couple paragraphs of Indian River Shores, another paragraph for Sebastian, and that was the first thing we said, we're like, oh, there's not a lot here but you're like, it's an overall plan, but if you can be there for those meetings, that would be just fantastic. Any additional comments for sidewalks and bikeways, Mr. Kraus?
Nope, that's it for tonight.
Excellent. Well, thank you, everybody, for being champions on your specific items, and we look forward to your continued hard work. We'll move on to item B, the Treasure Coast Waterway Cleanup Event Debrief.
All right. Thank you all for participating in the event. We had a decent event this year. Unfortunately, we didn't have as many public participants as we would have liked, but hopefully we still get some good numbers back from the overall event all up and down the Treasure Coast. I'll find out that information later this month, and I'll report back to you in September when I find out what the final numbers were. But again, I really appreciate all of you that came out to help and just to be there and maybe do a little cleaning up as you did early in the morning. Charles, I know you were gone before I think most of the board members were there, but all your help is greatly appreciated. And if you have any feedback or suggestions for how we can make it better for next year, I'd like to open the floor to that.
Any suggestions for next year that you can think of for right now?
I do. Go ahead, Nikki, you can.
I was just curious with the boaters. I feel like we had people who would stop by and they would pick up and they would walk. But in past years, I feel like we had many more folks going out in their vessels. And I don't know if it's worth putting a sign up in advance, like a couple weekends in advance, where they can get the information or get like a QR code on the sign, or I'm not sure what's available. I don't know that it's worth going out and creating all kinds of new stuff. But it seemed like when we were able to go up and say something to the boaters, they were like, yeah, sure, or, oh, I can't today. But if they knew in advance, that might help.
Maybe contacting our people that had participated before, some of the companies that we didn't see next year.
Can you elaborate on what you mean? Sorry.
Well, we had like we had the Fit Club there, and they brought like 12 people, and then we had different clubs were there representing different businesses, had shirts on that were representing. Maybe we go back to those, say, hey, look, we're going to do this. Would you guys like to participate again? Any other comments?
I agree totally with that, but I also was telling Felicia that I thought that we have several new members now on the board, and I think that when we do these public things that we need to have a spiel. We need to have a practice session where we know what kind of things to say. Everybody sat around. I mean, I was walking up to the boaters, but if you have a couple of bullet items that you can say to people and you can practice them and you feel more comfortable going to these people, I mean, most of them, I mean, nobody's going to just run over you or anything. I mean, most of the people are friendly around here, and especially if they have children on the boats, they want to participate. And I think that we missed a lot of people because the boaters were out earlier because it's been so freaking hot. So maybe we have another time frame that's earlier for a couple people to do when the boaters are there. And maybe we get Sebastian Daly out there. I mean, there were a lot of people that just looked at us when they drove by because they didn't know what we were doing, and I don't think that the word got out very well as far as advertising or promotional stuff. So
Excellent, excellent. Mr. Kraus?
All right, I had 2 suggestions. The first one was that we have sort of designated areas in which we can, if individuals come to us, we had several individuals come to us, and I guess we sort of said, well, you can go down there, or you can try over here. And so I happened to watch the city photographer, and on her own, she went down to the beach. And I'm sitting there going, you know, I didn't even think of that. And so people came, and at least I didn't suggest, you know, oh, you can go right over here or whatever. And so even if you take the strip along there and sort of carve it up, so well, you could say, you know, you can hand them a sheet or show them the sheet. Well, if you go from this restaurant down to here, we'd appreciate it. We haven't had anybody, you know, go down that way, et cetera. And but it just makes it easier to provide them with information rather than just stand there kind of.
Some more direction for our volunteers when they come.
Yeah, I think so. That's
good.
one suggestion. The second one is, I don't know how you folks feel about this, but I made the unfortunate error to sit in the chair in the grass. And I don't know, you guys probably don't taste as good as I do, but I got a lot of no-see-ums on my legs, and they didn't hurt, but it certainly doesn't look good. So maybe we should move off the grass a little bit if there's no breeze or something, because it got pretty bad.
Wear long pants.
Yeah, or wear long pants and tuck your pants into your socks. So anyway.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, any other suggestions while we're talking about this?
I really like the idea of having, maybe break the waterfront up, because a lot of people are walking. And if we know that somebody's going to take the area north of the boat launch down to, say, Earl's, and then we'll say they're going to do that, and then maybe another person can come by if you go down north of Earl's down to Captain Hiram's, you know, where they have little sections that they know that nobody has maybe been there yet. Would be really helpful for them, because it's like, well, where do we go? And so I think that's an excellent idea to give them like little suggestions of areas, and maybe we can go down ahead of time and figure out like what sections and what kind of access there is there, so that they'll have a better idea. Because people are out walking and they just don't know, well, how far down do we need to go, and has somebody already been here, you know what I mean? So I think that's an excellent idea.
Thank you. Thank you for your input. Any other suggestions?
The only reason I mention things of that nature is that you talked about certain groups. Mm-hmm. So if you have a designated area, I'm just using this example, the Rotary, you could say, the Rotary has agreed to take this section. And then you carve it up, and then, you know, groups can
focus on that section.
Focus on that.
Yeah, so you could do not only the shoreline, but people that are in boats. Mm-hmm. Can you just check this area out here from the water? Mm-hmm. And that might be kind of an interesting way to attack it.
Excellent. Excellent suggestions. And look forward to seeing everybody out there again next year. And we'll get more information on the tonnages that we picked up. Okay. Any other comments on that? All right, not seeing any. We'll move on to new business. And item A will be the next International Coastal Cleanup is Saturday, September 21st from 9 a.m.
Sorry, I just want to remind you, I want to tackle the agenda modification before we forget for this meeting. And that also happens chronologically sooner in time.
I got you. I went with 1, and then this says 2. Okay, gotcha. Under new business, NRB participating in the upcoming event, Look Back in Time on Saturday, September 14th. Okay, there's an event coming up, a look back in time on Saturday, September 14th. Would you like to discuss what that is?
Yes, so the Sebastian River Art Club and as part of the centennial event this year is hosting a look back in time, which is going to exhibit 40 plus of the paintings from or paintings of the historic Sebastian buildings. There's supposed to be teacher demos throughout the day. There's mini masterpiece sales. The centennial tent will be there. And as being that the centennial tent will be there, Donna brought the suggestion forward that we have a natural resources board booth present at the event to kind of create awareness and continue to celebrate the centennial. And if you'd like to speak to that a little bit.
Well, I just suggested that it's another outreach opportunity, and this is going to be, they're going to have a lot of the city's trucks here, so the families are going to be here with their kids, because they want to be able to climb on a truck. And they'll also be having food trucks here and some other music, I think. I don't know what else, but a lot of it's going to be centered right here around the fountain. So you wouldn't necessarily, you could be in the shade. You could put your table up in the shade. And just like you did for Earth Day, basically, is what I was thinking.
It's an outreach opportunity, and they're wanting us to participate.
And it's only 10 till 2 or 10 to 1, something like that.
Yes,
what is the city doing?
I
think the city's only doing 10 till 2.
To be honest, I'm not sure what the centennial tent is doing. I can certainly find out.
I'm pretty sure it's 10 to 2. So you'd have, 4 hours.
Mm-hmm. And I did come up with a kind of a schedule of what we're looking at. I believe I gave you all copies as part of the agenda modification of what that tentative timeline would look like. So I would need at least a couple people per shift. Those shifts would only be about 2 hours in length. And we would start at 9:30 for a setup. The event actually begins at 10 a.m. Of course, that group would only stay till about 11:30. Then we'd have another group from 11:30 to 1:30. And then the last group would be there until teardown, and then however long teardown actually takes. But this is just kind of to give you a framework for how the day would flow and to see if you have availability that day, if the board does agree to participate, then you can choose what time slot you would prefer.
Okay, well, let's take care of that first. Is there a motion for participation under this event for Saturday, September 14th, a look back in time? And you heard what it's going to take. Is there a motion for NRB to participate?
Well, I'm so involved with the art club that, I don't want to force this down your throats, but I just said that I just thought it would be a good opportunity.
You can make the motion. Feel free.
Okay, I'll make a motion that the NRB participates in this day as an opportunity with our sustainable Sebastian.
Is there a second motion for this?
I'll second it.
Okay.
I think we should probably just discuss who thinks that they could make it before we commit. I know personally it's really difficult with my son's sports schedules to say I don't know what their games are, so I think it would be a great opportunity. I would like to vote aye, and I think I'm going to absolutely sign up for a shift. I just can't commit at this point, so I just wanted to let everyone know that.
Okay, well, there's a motion and a second, so let's go ahead and just going to vote on it because it's an actionable item, and then we'll take it from there. And I vote for NRB participation.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any nays? Not seeing anybody. It's a unanimous participation event for us, guys. Okay, so mark your calendar. We're going to need, it looks like at least 4 of us. So everybody can put in an hour, put in 2 hours, do what you can. We'll know by next meeting who can do what, I'm sure, because this is just August. Excellent. Good motion. Okay, we'll keep on moving through. And item B, City of Sebastian Christmas Parade. Okay, excellent. That's going to be on Saturday.
Charles, I'm sorry. Just to keep it in chronological order, let's go to the International Coastal Cleanup first.
Oh, okay. All right, we'll do that. Okay, we'll go to International Coastal Cleanup. Will be Saturday, September 21st. And do you have anything you want to comment on that before we vote on it?
Yes, absolutely. So I should have mentioned this with the previous item, and my apologies. I believe I've provided all of you with an updated calendar that includes a look back in time, and it also includes the International Coastal Cleanup as well. So you have that for your reference. They are back-to-back weekends. So that the 14th is a look back in time. The weekend after that is the International Coastal Cleanup. Last year, I assisted Erin Bergman with the Indian River Lagoon National Estuary Program in hosting the Riverview Park site for the International Coastal Cleanup. We had a wonderful turnout. We had over 100 people participate in that event. This particular event, each county has a organization that represents and runs the cleanup on behalf of the Ocean Conservancy. So in this case, it's Coastal Connections that's running this cleanup for the county. And I have in front of me the Park Champion event packet. And if you all are interested in participating this time around, and we'll do everything we can to assist the IRL NEP once again in this event, I'll go ahead and fill out the Park Champion packet on behalf of the board.
Thank you. What will it require from us as actual participants? What are you going to need for people?
Right. So the event is a little bit shorter than, let's say, the Treasure Coast Waterway Cleanup. It's only a couple hours as opposed to the length of time that the Treasure Coast Waterway Cleanup is. I would still need hands on deck on the day of to assist with handing out supplies, helping make sure everybody gets their items weighed in once they return from the cleanup itself, making sure that everybody is following safety measures and all that sort of jazz, kind of like the Treasure Coast Waterway Cleanup, except it's a little more formal. With this particular cleanup, there's a formal opening to the cleanup and a more formal closing to the cleanup, as opposed to people coming and going as they please. So the format is a little bit different, but as far as your assistance, it would be fairly similar, and of course you're welcome to participate in the cleanup as you see fit. Now, leading up to the cleanup, we would be helping the IRL NEP with any sort of outreach, trying to get people interested in the event to begin with. If there's any just sort of administrative and facilitative actions that we can take to help with planning the event, that is where you guys might come in.
All right, looks like we're going to take a vote on this one as well, because it is an actual item. And on the International Coastal Cleanup for Saturday, September 21st, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Do we have a motion to be a champion on that project? We'll need a motion.
I'll be out of town, so I don't want to.
Anybody can make a motion.
I make a motion that we participate.
Okay. Is there a second on that?
I'll second it.
Okay, excellent. We have a first and a second. Let's go ahead and have a voice vote of aye for approval.
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, wait, let's start at the other end down here because it got kind of mixed up. Aye, aye, aye. I'll do aye.
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 Okay, guys, it's a unanimous ayes. Any nays? All right, not seeing any nays. Okay, when we do this stuff unanimously, we got to show up. That's the only thing.
Well, Mr. Chairman, like Ms. Ware, I will also be out of town on that particular weekend, so I cannot participate.
Okay, well, pick one of these days, everybody, and whoever's listening out there can also show up. And but when we do and we vote on them unanimously, we got to have participation. I'll be there as best as I can, absolutely. So put me on both of them, and I'll do what I can.
And I can be there as well.
And we got to remember, we still got next meeting to figure all this out. And you can also get somebody to take your place. You know, if you got somebody that you know that likes to volunteer, all we're doing is cleaning up the place. So if you got a young fellow or a young lady in college who needs some community hours, maybe they're on probation, I don't know.
Felicia,
Get them out here.
And if you have flyers, I'll be happy to, I'll put the flyers all over the place for you.
Thank you.
so Felicia, I missed it. Where's is it the same place down at the Main Street boat ramp?
So this time, we're projecting that it would be at actually Riverview Park. There will be a Main Street boat ramp site for that event, but if we are assisting the IRL NEP with their site, we'll be at Riverview Park.
Thank you for your motions to push this through, and thank everybody for their participation in everything so far. Moving on to item B under new business, City of Sebastian Christmas Parade will be Saturday, December 7th, 2024, and we're going to confirm participation through an aye vote. And if we have a motion to participate in the Christmas Parade.
I make a motion to participate in the Christmas parade.
Yay, Ms. Ware. Can we have a second?
I will second the motion.
Okay, excellent. Mr. Dow, thank you. And with a voice vote of aye for approval?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye the way all the way across. Any nays? Okay, we are participating in the Christmas parade. And again, this is another one of those unanimous decisions that we made. We'll have to participate. We do make a float, and the float's really nice. It's a large pull-behind trailer that we decorate every year. So if we can come up with a theme for this year, we try to use, you know, something that works within our Sustainable Sebastian theme. And as we go forward these next couple of months, it'll be a lot of fun. One of the things that I would like to do on that, I would like to get rid of tossing candy from any float. From all the
Or at least
floats.
candy not wrapped in plastic.
Any candy. Or wrapped in plastic, yeah, because it's not that they're giving out the candy part, that's the bad part. What it is that they take a handful, and we're guilty of it too, because we're all on the floats and we're trying to run or something like that, and they toss a handful of candy to the kids. They love it. And I've been watching it since I was a little kid, but I would like to get rid of that, to be honest with you. I mean, still hand out candy, but get off the float and hand it out and not be allowed to. But I would like to bring it up as a discussion item at a next meeting. And because there's going to be a lot of people who may not like that decision, but I was picking up candy during this last pickup. I mean, I'm picking up, and I'm like, oh man, this is us. So I can do something about that.
I wanted to mention too, I believe the date of the Christmas parade is the culmination of the birthday party for the city. I think
Excellent.
there's I think there's gonna be fireworks that night, birthday cake, things like that, I believe is at the Christmas parade. So a lot of the themes may be tied into that 100th
And other
centennial.
organizations are also doing stuff, because I know Rotary has their Brew Fest, and it's all tied in down at the park, so they're trying to make it a big end-of-year celebration, and we get our float, and we're right behind City Council. So we're supporting everything that they do, even though they're holding up everybody. We're like, beep, beep, beep. But let's try to get rid of throwing out that candy this year. Even though we'll still give it out, but just don't throw it off. We'll bring it up at the next meeting. Okay, we can move on. Items for next agenda.
Oh, actually, Charles, just before we move on from
Go right ahead.
The Christmas parade. Now, this past Christmas, we did give out seed packets, and I wasn't sure if the board is interested. We don't have to make a decision on that right now, but if you do want to pursue giving out seed packets again, then that's something we'll need to consider, and we'd have to purchase additional seeds to make more seed packets, possibly have another work day before the Christmas parade rolls around.
So can I ask a question? We have money, right?
Yes.
In line with getting rid of throwing candy, it might make more sense for us to hand out something else.
Money.
Well, yeah, money always works, but I was thinking like a I know, I wouldn't, on Halloween, I used to knock on people's doors, and instead of giving me a candy bar, they'd hand me an apple. And I'd end up throwing that apple into the bushes later on. So I'm not suggesting that we go that far, but, a paper bag to give the kids a candy, allow them to put their candy in a paper bag or something rather than a.
Excellent.
I think
Rather
we
than
can
a
get
plastic.
candy that's wrapped in paper.
Well, what we can do is that between now and the next meeting, write down these ideas that you got, and let's finalize this at the next meeting, because I could not believe and we talked about this the very first year we decided to have the float, because we've been doing this for a while now, and we just, Dr. Malsbeck was the one who really pointed it out, that basically there was wrappers everywhere from people taking off the wrappers from the candy canes. So we got rid of that, we went with something else. And again, it's just a matter of behavior, a little behavior modification, and I think we can still have a very fun event and keep it sustainable. And your ideas we can come up with at the next meeting, and we'll try to get some money for them if we have to. But I know we got money in our account, and it's not a use it or lose it thing. So
I think it might depend on which funds you're referring to. For the special events funds that you guys, that the board has had access to year after year, that allotted amount of money gets, I guess you could say, replenished each year, but if there are remaining funds left in that account, it doesn't roll over, so it doesn't get added to the funds that would be given in the next year.
we just get the same amount.
Yes, you just get a brand new,
Right.
Same amount every year.
So it doesn't build up.
No, it does not build up.
I think we should get the seeds, though. I think you should
More
definitely.
seeds?
Yeah, I think we should do the seeds. I mean, because at least that's sustainable. It goes with our goals.
And we can also look at businesses sponsoring that. There's a lot of different things we can bring up at this next meeting. The float itself is very visible. It's one of our things. Go ahead.
I have a suggestion for the float. Would it be possible to purchase some sort of Christmas, like a blow-up thing to put on the float that we can use every year? Some of the floats, I've noticed they have a lot of really cool things on them, and ours is just kind of like a hodgepodge of leftover lights and stuff like that. So I think that it would just be really nice to have some sort of thing that we can make the investment and figure out if it can be mounted on top of the truck as opposed to the trailer, to kind of get something that's a little more presentable, you know what I mean? I mean, there's a lot of things going on there with all the people and stuff on it, but I think it would be nice to have something that people, oh, that's really
We
cool.
need a mascot.
Exactly.
Well, let's work on some designs, write them on paper. Like, remember when I made the diorama and brought it in? Yeah, huh? I still have that. Yeah, what I did was I made a diorama of the original float out of.
Yeah, but you don't have enough time to do that now.
I did, though, and it almost looked like it too. But something like that, just draw out your ideas, and then we'll bring it back and let's vote on it on the next meeting. And then what we can do then is that we can develop a theme instead of being a hodgepodge like you're talking about, and we can develop a theme, and we'll buy this big giant abominable snowman that goes, "Hey, don't throw that plastic in the river."
Was it, they had the guy, was it Christmas Vacation, I think? One of the floats last year was Christmas Vacation or something.
Right.
And it
Chevy
was really,
Chase,
it was
and
funny and it was really cute, but so.
Yeah, so we'll
But,
come up with a theme, we'll go with that, and, spend as little money as we can, and
But it would be a one-time investment if you get like one of those balloon things. Or it could even be one of those like, those kind of guys that, that it doesn't take much.
something that draws attraction.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Okay, excellent. Any more ideas on our Christmas parade that we voted unanimously to participate in, team? Okay, not hearing any. We confirmed participation. We just did float ideas. So we're going to move on to item 10. Items for next agenda and date. Tuesday, September 3rd. We're going to talk about Sustainable Sebastian. We're going to talk about Treasure Coast Waterway cleanup with the final numbers, International Coastal Cleanup that we voted on unanimously to participate in, and the Christmas Parade. Is there anything else anybody wants to put on for the next agenda?
Yes.
Go right ahead, Ms. Ware.
All right, so I'm looking at this wonderful thing that Felicia blows up for us.
Yay!
Every single meeting. And at the very top, it says, home stretch of the 5-year implementation is September 30th. Okay, so that means that that's September. We're in August.
Last meeting, right.
So
correct.
I think that we really need, all of us need to look at these things that we have as goals and where we've gotten and where are we going to go. And we don't necessarily have to do all of them at one meeting. If we just pick maybe goal 1 and 2, and everybody does their homework and looks at these things and comes up with some ideas for how are we going to change our goals? Because obviously we didn't get anywhere with Litter Quitter. So that whole goal kind of went out the window with COVID. So I think that if we break it up over the next couple of meetings, we'll have our new plan.
All right, well, what we'll have to do is, let's go ahead and put this on our next agenda to go through what you were just talking about, because item 1 and goal 1 was the, like you're saying, that got kind of switched over to single-use plastics.
Yes.
And, but yeah, let's go ahead and put it on the agenda for next time. We'll talk about it, and we should be able to get some of this renewed. Some of it is done.
Yes.
Well, big chunks of it are done. So let's go ahead and review it out and see where we're at. And it's been a great 5 years. I can't believe where it's gone, to be honest with you. And a lot has happened. Remember, what we were dealing with was pest management, IPM, when we were in the middle of all this. All right, guys. Fantastic.
Charles, if you don't mind me jumping in, just to kind of reiterate, I know we've said this 100 times, but what we're working on right now doesn't just drop off the face of the planet, right? Because we're planning for the next plan. So let's start cultivating these ideas. Like Donna said, let's start figuring out what we'd like to see out of the next version of the plan. I know Mr. Kraus had mentioned a couple ideas that he has for the next version of the plan. So we'll incorporate all of those. If you'd like, I can send you information on the original full fleshed out sustainable Sebastian plan if that sparks any ideas. If there's anything you guys will need from me to kind of get those juices going and figure out where you'd like to see this go, let me know.
Excellent.
So can I just make the pitch? I did mention last time about 2 types of pollution that generally get overlooked, and one was light pollution, and the other one was noise pollution. And coming into Sebastian, one of my observations was this is a noisy place, and noise is a type of pollution, and it really affects people. It affects, their level of stress, their ability to focus, etc. So I am going to push for those 2.
Excellent.
I don't know specifically yet.
Well, you'll figure it out between now and the next meeting. But it is very important. Light and sound both affect people and animals. So it's definitely a very important topic. And just walk outside at night and you'll see the night sky lit up over by the soccer fields.
Yeah.
Yeah, lights up the whole city. Okay, any other questions while we're talking about this? Nothing for the next agenda, and if I can get a motion for adjournment?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Ms. Ware. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Can I get a voice vote? Aye?
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.